Major League Journeymen back in action. We got some good topics to talk about, but it's really just generalities. The offseason is through. We got games on deck, and we got big opinions from Mr. Dax McCarty and Mr. Alan Gordon themselves on maybe the tiers of excellence within this league. We're starting to see a little bit of separation amongst the best, but now we're going to dive in and have a little bit more discourse on that. Why don't you join us? Major League Journeyman back in the building. Dax McCarty, Alan Gordon, Dan Gargan, fresh off a Super Bowl championship last night for my Philadelphia Eagles.
That's right. You look a little tired, buddy.
Yeah, I'm hungover, guys. I celebrated in the streets of Philadelphia. No, I didn't go. I didn't go to the game, and I didn't go to Philly. I think the championship parade is on Friday potentially. I wanted to start there because I do.
Of course you do.
Well, no, I don't need your opinion on the Eagles because I know what that is. But I wanted to start in this place because I was having this reflective moment, and the Eagles won the Super Bowl and the Galaxy won MLS Cup, who are two franchises that are near and dear to my heart. And I was thinking about this as like a fan now because I have a little bit of a different connection to the Galaxy, but now as an Eagles fan, I've kind of recommitted myself now that I've been far enough out of the professional sports world as a player where I feel like I can be a fan and I can be a genuine fan. And I wanted to ask you guys, Dax, I wanted to kind of start with you because I want to hear from you which fan base should be most excited about this upcoming season. Like which club has done the most through maybe the finish of last year or the offseason or the build up into opening day. If you're a fan, which now you're heading into that space in your life, you're probably not there yet. But if you put yourself into a club's fan base and their shoes, who would you be most excited to be?
This is a no-brainer, and I feel really bad that you came to me first because I know for a fact Gordo's going to be sad because I know he's going to bitch and moan about me taking his answer because it's so obvious that it's the San Jose Earthquakes. And I know him. He's like my weird uncle.
He's the most predictable uncle you have. But
it is true though. Like if you're the San Jose Earthquakes, like you have to be absolutely elated. If you're that fan base coming off the season they just had where they set records for like all the wrong things, you are about to enter into a new era. And listen, we all know, you can doubt Bruce all you want. People have doubted him everywhere.
Man, doubt him at your own peril, right?
And guess what he does? He just wins. He just has success. He did it with the Galaxy. He did it with New England because there were serious doubters with New England. And he turned that team around like that. And I want to be a little cautious here because I don't think the turnaround with San Jose is going to be as sharp and drastic. But I think that club has such a good trajectory now that they have someone in place who is a proven winner, and they have their ownership group has blown me away with some of the pieces that they have allowed Bruce to go and bring in. Like, I am still questioning how Joseph and Chicho, two alphas in MLS, are going to coexist. But you guys know better than anybody else. If there's someone on this planet who can make two mercurial, moody, strikers who need to be the egomaniacs. If there's anyone who can make it work, it's Bruce. Okay.
Yeah.
And they brought in Dave Romney. They tried to improve the back line a little bit, and they turned over their midfield. Right. Out is Jackson Ewell, and Bruce brings in some guys he knows. Right. Mark Anthony Kaye, Ian Harkes. Like they have to add to the pieces they already have with Espinoza, who we all I think agree is like a top winger in MLS.
Yep.
They are going to make some noise in the West. They will make the playoffs 100%. The only question for me is how high do they go? So that's the team for me who's going to make a huge turnaround.
I love the answer. I was actually thinking about Bruce in this question because I think your answer is a great one, and the Earthquakes is specifically. Bruce is an interesting one because, and I'll connect him to Jalen Hurts. Because Jalen Hurts is now, like, up until this point, everybody is just saying, well, all he does is win. And Bruce is very similar to that. All he does is win. And you mentioned a couple names. Gordo, before you give me your answer, I know what Bruce focuses on, and I feel like his blueprint is continually focus on the culture, focus on the roster, make sure that you're bringing in guys that you know that you can trust, guys that you can that will build your locker room before they go out on the field. Why do you think, or I guess where does Bruce go? Why does he continue to reinvent like this, and why haven't other clubs adopted that?
Reinvent like what? And please stop this episode with comparing everything to the Eagles. I'm already done with it, and we're 10 minutes in. Please stop. Okay, you can keep going. Dude, explain your question a little bit further. Why doesn't everybody hire Bruce Arena?
No. Why is Bruce continually getting doubted? Like, why is he doubted in this situation? Why has he not earned enough capital within this league to say, here's the blueprint, do it like this, and we're going to do it again?
Because everybody thinks they're smarter than the game, and Bruce keeps it so simple. He's still stuck in Virginia in 1987. He's never changed. The guy, you and I both know, his offensive tactics are tough, right? It's all defensive. Keep it in a block. Keep everybody organized defensively.
Can you do a Bruce impression about his tactics?
No, Bruce guards is better, but he lets his players have freedom, and he gets the right players that know how to play together, and he allows them the freedom. If he trusts you, he's going to give you chance after chance after chance after chance. That's why a lot of the times his teams start slow, and then they find their rhythm when it comes crunch time and playoff time, and then they get hot. Bruce keeps it super simple. He's probably got an Excel sheet of every roster spot and what he's going to pay, or a lot to each player. That's how he does it. And he finds people in those spaces. That's why, if Bruce gets a new gig, Dave Romney is getting traded, because Bruce takes people that he likes, he trusts, that are good in locker rooms, and then he brings them with him to have that core group, and then he'll figure out the special pieces afterwards and make sure they're solidified. Bruce is
talk about those special pieces though, Gordo, because I think that's the reason why Chicho and Joseph can exist. Talk about like the confidence that he gives goal scorers, or that he gives like his guys it's a different layer.
It's incredible. I remember Edson Buttle, one of the top 10 strikers in, maybe, 10 to 15 strikers in league history, arguably, right? Incredible player. He went through a real slump, and he would probably, tell you that. And I was sitting right behind him, and I thought I was playing well in practice, right? But Edson was his guy. And as bad as he was on the practice pitch or in games, Bruce didn't care. He wasn't going to slide me in front of Edson, nor should he have. Edson had the ability to be more special than I had the capability of being, but he gave him that time and
he gave him a long leash.
He gave him a long leash and said, he didn't even say anything to him. He's just like, you're going to figure it out. He did the same thing with Robbie Keane. I mean, he never said anything to Robbie. You didn't have to, right? Robbie's a brilliant player, but all these guys, you can go on and on and on and on. If you're his guy, you are in. He will ride through you. And Bruce's his magic ability is not to panic. How many teams years with him? We lost 6 out of the first 10 games, and he wasn't bothered one bit, not one bit. And then we talked about like how his presence going into playoff races. He says, hey, regular season's over. This is a tournament. We're going to win this tournament. Now it's completely separate. So he simplifies it so incredibly. And back to your original question, Guards, the only reason I can think that people doubt Bruce is age. It's similar to players Like we went through with Bruce, or we went through with Dax last year, and every other player that's ever played the game. There's just
The game has passed you by.
Right? The league's passed you by. All these guys think these new tactics and this way of playing is going to far more advanced. Is going to. It is just a new way, but sometimes just keeping it simple, like it works. So long answer. That's just my question. I don't know why
long story long.
Doubting him, but That's
okay,
it.
so you can't take the San Jose Earthquakes. Which club should be most excited headed into the season?
I would have taken the Earthquakes. I'm going to say
Obviously.
Chicago Fire. I'm going to say Chicago Fire. We talked to McGee last week. They're going. I mean, this is exciting.
Yeah.
I believe in Berhalter. I know you two do as well. I think he's very similar on a shorter. On a younger path as Bruce. He's proven he can build teams. He's proven he can win in the MLS. He's got a new, fresh, more mature look at this and spending 8 years with the national team. So he's coming in with all this, I think experience of recruiting outside of the U.S., which is weird because U.S. national team is supposed to be domestic, but it's not anymore. You're going to recruit our players abroad, and so he's seeing a lot of players outside. He's seeing a lot of young guys, young talent. So if you go through their signings and what they're freeing up, they're cleaning house, it looks like. Player departures, this list goes on and on and on and
Please
on.
don't read all of them.
I'm not going to read all of them. I don't even know who. I think I don't know who.
You don't even know who half of them are.
I don't know who anyone is, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But they're cleaning house and they're opening up to give him a blank canvas. And Mike McGee, who was gracious enough to come on with us, they're going to build a stadium, and they're going to get behind this team. And I hope I'm not wrong. I really hope I'm not wrong. I hope that's all true because Chicago Fire freaking needs it, and all three of us are past players. Dax, you're a past captain of that club. You loved that club at one point before they threw you in the trash.
Easy, buddy.
That's
recycle bin. They threw you in the recycle bin.
Recycle bin. Yeah.
Shout out Nelson Rodriguez. He let me choose.
That's right.
Nashville, so I appreciate that. But Gordo, you're not wrong. I honestly think that to add a little bit of nuance to that, Greg, I think he sees Chicago as a sleeping giant, which he should, and I think they are. They have a good striker.
Dude, this league is better when Chicago is legit.
We all know that. But look at you know what he did? He said we need to be better on our back line and we need to be better up top. We have a great striker. Piper scored I think 15 goals on a really bad team. And look at who Greg just brought in. He brought in two expensive high-level wingers who will provide service and be able to score goals. And then they brought in who, in my opinion, has been one of the best, most steady center backs in MLS for the past couple of years in Jack Elliott. And he is going to be their anchor on their back line because their back line has been crap for years. And they haven't had anyone they can rely on. They need to have Andrew Gutman stay healthy. But I think Chicago and the East in general is really interesting. You could have gone a number of different ways with this answer. I've got two not dark horses, but two teams.
Let Garg's answer.
I know. I want Garg's to. I want
to hear your dark horses though.
I think for me, it's in your backyard, Dax. It's Atlanta United.
That's what I was going Atlanta next.
Atlanta United for me is one. Probably, maybe this might come out a bit sacrilegious with who I would identify with as the Galaxy, but I think that Atlanta United is the premier club in this league, and I think that when they are on fire, they are an incredible force. And what they've just done with the Garth hire, which I thought was excellent, to then Chris Henderson this offseason from Inter Miami and bringing him over and what he did in Miami and also being compatible with Garth in Seattle and what he did in Seattle and now having a real budget in Atlanta is a great start. Bringing in Ronnie Delia on similar to what you're talking about, his second stint and go around. Proven winner, right? And is also going to be able to manage international personalities, and then just the roster manipulation that they're coming up with, like bringing Almiron back, bringing Latte Lath in, bringing Klitsch from DC as a DP who's not a DP in Atlanta. I still don't understand how that math is mathing, but this is what they do. And now you're going to get a re-energized, reignited, re-engaged fan base that will be pumped to go to the Benz and fill and pack that place again with an exciting brand of football. I don't think that – I love your guys' answers, but I think they're wrong. And it's got to be Atlanta United. Atlanta United's fan base has got to be off the chain right now.
Dax,
off the 2 chains.
Can I ask a question? Dax, do you think Gargs is right? Do you think that Atlanta is the premier club in the MLS?
I think that they are the – if I'm going to, the caveat is this. The answer is yes, but I'm only going to caveat this with in terms of ambition. There is no club that is more ambitious than Atlanta United, and that is proven in every single thing that they do with their player signings. Look, we were incredibly ambitious last year, but when it kind of started to go sideways a little bit, we sold.
What does that even mean? Ambitious?
It means that they are constantly pushing the envelope. And what do you mean? What does ambition mean, Gordo?
I'm talking about in what sense? The Galaxy signed Zlatan. The Galaxy signed. I mean, think of the signings. Gerard.
I'm talking about ambition in terms of who are realistic targets that you can sign. Zlatan was not going to play for any other club. Stevie G
that's historical.
That doesn't take anything away from them.
No, it doesn't.
I'm talking about ambition from a pure monetary standpoint, Gordo. If you look at the top 10 transfers into MLS in MLS history, Atlanta United is probably like 8 of those. That is real ambition. And you cannot go and try to sign a Neymar because he's not coming to Atlanta. He's not going to sign in Atlanta. He's not going to want to play on turf, right? Like it's just not going to happen. So like you can't look at a Zlatan or a Messi or a Suarez and be like, well, Atlanta's not ambitious because they don't try to sign those guys. No, they would, but they're realistic. You know what they do? They go scout really, really good players who they think they can sign, and then they say, I'm going to go get them, Arthur. Can you cut us a check for $25 million? That's ambition. I don't care how you slice it. No one has ever, none of us have ever heard of Emmanuel Latte Lot before 2-3 weeks ago. And they just broke the MLS transfer record to go and sign this guy.
Again.
And
for the 7th time.
And they just brought back arguably the greatest player in their history in Miguel Almiron to really reignite the fan base. So that's what I mean by ambition. Like, obviously signing Zlatan and Stevie G and Robbie Keane and
you're signing the two best MLS executives over the past decade.
Exactly. You are going and getting proven winners. Chris Henderson and what he did in Miami isn't talked about enough. Garth Lagerwey, he's talked about in the breath that he should be talked about as one of the greatest GMs in MLS history. My point is, they will not stop at anything to be good. I think they've had some misses in the last couple of years. Gargs can probably speak to this. I can speak to this. Yep. They've underachieved for 5 years now, and it hasn't been acceptable. And that's why people have lost their jobs. Players have been moved in and out. Like Giacomakis was an absolute stud in MLS, and he couldn't stay on the field, and he couldn't stay healthy this past year. And when they got an offer they couldn't refuse for him.
And what'd they do? They made money off him.
They made money off him.
It's good business.
The way they do business, that is what I classify as ambition. And I think that they certainly are the most ambitious club in the league. And if they don't finish in the top 3 in the Supporter Shield race, something will have gone incredibly wrong. Whether it's injuries, whether it's players not gelling, but they should be a top 3 team in the Supporter Shield race just based off talent alone.
Gordo, are you taking the Galaxy in that discussion?
And what, for the most ambitious? Or
no, the premier club in the league.
I don't want it to always be me backing up the Galaxy. But yes, they are the premier.
But yes, I will do that.
They are the premier team in the league because they have 6 championships, and they started as the premier club in this league in 1996.
They've held up their end of the bargain. Yeah, I get it.
They've held it up. It's hard to argue, and with the signings they've had,
DC United started as the premier club in the league. Just so we're clear.
What's that?
DC United was the premier club in the league when the league started, just so we're clear.
I was going to say DC. I was just about to say DC. Okay, DC and the Galaxy were both, okay, whatever, right? 1A, 1B.
Yeah.
But they've clearly not had the ambition.
It's probably DC and Chicago Fire, actually, if we're going to split hairs. But
I don't disagree with you guys. I think there's clubs that have come in and been more ambitious than some of the forefathers of the MLS and those clubs. Yeah. Okay, I do. Seattle, Miami, Atlanta, all of them. Right? Like it's changed. Like these guys have come in and they've done fantastic things for the league. I think Atlanta's doing the same thing.
LA Galaxy, Seattle Sounders, Atlanta United, Inter Miami. Is there anybody else that is in that top tier? Is there a fifth club that sits in that top tier?
LAFC, no question about it.
No question about it.
And you think so? Hold on. I don't know if I agree with that.
I do. Hell yeah. They've pushed the league. What, dude, think about their go through the years that they've been in existence. Because they've fallen short with some trophies, dude. They have not necessarily because of that. I think that I think
you're wrong, Gargs.
Okay, I might be wrong. They might be 4B for me.
I think they're in that tier. 100% put them in.
Do you put okay? Then let me ask this question a different way. Do you put them above any of the others that I mentioned?
Well, not as a whole, right? But like
recently, I put them above Seattle. Yes.
We're talking about premier clubs in the league. I guess we didn't really specify the question, but you would put them. You would rank if we did a club ranking right now. You're putting LAFC above Seattle.
No, I'm not.
I'm putting. I mean, look, we're going off on a tangent here, but what
we are.
To me, what you're talking about is you said initially it was what clubs are going to make the biggest jump. And we said Atlanta United. And then you said, to me, Atlanta United is the biggest club in MLS in terms of...
The premier club in MLS.
The premier club in MLS. Yep. So we're talking about premier clubs.
Yep.
LAFC has to be in that conversation, and they have to be above Seattle. If you look at points gained since LAFC has come into the league, they have, I would bet the mortgage that they have more points gained than Seattle.
Atlanta, by the way.
And Atlanta. They have just as many.
I agree with that.
They have just as many, if not more, trophies than Seattle in that same time frame since they've entered the league. And they have.
Okay.
What do you mean? I think they have more than Seattle in that time.
But Seattle's history doesn't. It extends deeper than LAFC. So
that's not LAFC's
compartmentalizing. I know. Okay, right, but they haven't earned it. My point is they haven't earned to be in that tier yet.
Hey, so what do you of recency bias? I don't care. I'm only comparing LAFC to Seattle when LAFC's been in existence. Seattle obviously has more trophies over their total longevity of existence. So I'm talking about a premier club. The way
what is the criteria for you for a premier club? Is it fan base, trophies, and history?
I think it's all of it, and right, like we're in a tangent we're often on a tangent without parameters, which is a dangerous place to be.
That's great. I love it.
But
it
I do think
great conversation.
I do think that it's all the above, right? So it's fan base, it's facilities, it's championships, it's history, it's brand, it's ambition. It's all of those things.
LAFC that they're more ambitious than most clubs in MLS. They are. They just are. And by the way, you also have to have the caveat that they need to be like that because the Galaxy are in their backyard and you're in LA. Like, you have no excuse. You cannot be crap. Like, look at the LA teams compared to the New York teams. Different level.
Yeah.
Different level of ambition, different level of outlay, different level of fan base. Like, it's just different. And I don't know why, because New York should be in both New York teams should be in this conversation.
Both New York teams should be. Maybe City gets there in the future. I don't think Red Bull.
You might be able to make a small argument for NYCFC being there in terms of who they tried to bring in when they started their club. But also,
a big piece of this though is also relevance within this country and relevance on an international stage, and that's where I just don't see it's tough because if we haven't put parameters in it and we haven't, kind of identified maybe the most important pieces of this discussion. But I don't know. I think you guys are right. LAFC probably deserves to be in that tier, but I think they're fifth for me. I don't think that they're above Seattle, and I don't think they're above Atlanta. I don't think they're above Inter Miami in a short amount of time. From a profile stage, who doesn't have the trophies that LAFC does, but realistically, like their profile is through the roof. And then you have the Galaxy. So I think they're fifth, and I think they're kind of a distant fifth, to be honest.
I think history is tough to talk about though when it's not fair that LAFC doesn't have the same history.
I agree, but I'm putting Miami in there too, and Miami's been shorter.
And I think 2 years ago you would be saying something different because Galaxy have had more
Galaxy
bad
were
seasons.
crap for years.
They were crap for 5 years, and LAFC was absolutely on fire. So I think it's just timing.
Both of you would be singing a different tune if the Galaxy didn't win the MLS Cup this year.
We would.
But
we would.
Again, I'm not going to hold that against
because that's history. Because that is history. Right? I mean, Galaxy has the history.
Well, who we're doing a disservice to in this conversation is Columbus. Because Columbus needs to be, I think, in that tier as well. I don't know if they're breaking.
But they don't because their fan base, their facilities, all lacking.
Their facilities not anymore. Their facilities
not anymore. But
their fan base is not lacking either. Since they built their new stadium, they are sold out more than they're not. They have
for a long time. Facility. But for a long time.
They also built the first soccer-specific stadium in North American soccer history.
Yeah, but they're not relevant.
Dude, they almost
they're
moved
not relevant.
Come on. They almost moved to Austin. Did you forget that?
But what's relevant to you, Dan? Is it if the average soccer fan cares about Columbus or not?
I think that's a big piece of it. Yeah, I think
that they are more relevant now. Modern day MLS than a lot of these other teams.
Dax, the same thing that you're saying. All five of those clubs even can't do the same things that they would like to do in terms of go out and get a Neymar or a Leo Messi or whatever. Columbus, they can't get anybody. That's not maybe they can't get anybody, but they're not in that conversation.
Let's rewind. They just spent $10 million to bring in a guy who was pretty easily, other than Messi, the best player in MLS the past couple years in Chucho, and they just sold him to a good La Liga club for a big profit.
Agreed.
And by the way, they have the best coach in MLS, and they had the best coach in MLS the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Dan,
they're like 11th.
They're extremely relevant. They're extremely relevant. Now, if you want to talk about,
they're relevant in MLS aficionados' value. Right. They're not relevant past that.
They're relevant in all the metrics that I look for relevancy in the last 5-10 years of MLS. They are extremely relevant and they are extremely efficient at how they do their business.
They are like a.
I didn't say they're not successful, Dax. I said they're not really all that relevant in terms of the same tier.
But we're moving the goalposts a little bit. I'm just saying.
Always listening.
We'll bring it back.
Is this thing on?
We'll bring it back to your initial question, which I thought would take 3 minutes, and it's taken 20, which is great. That's fantastic. But the other team that I think has the potential to make a big jump this year, just merely on the case that they can't be much worse, and they've basically turned over their entire team, is New England. I'm really curious to see how a bunch of new players that have been brought in respond to Caleb Porter, because I think it was clear it wasn't working in New England with who they had. He essentially said, listen, these aren't my players. You're all out. He got rid of his entire back line, basically. Brought back Brandon Bai and Andrew Farrell, and there's an entire new back line. And they brought in Leo Campana, who, let's be honest, if he's given the reins on a good team, he can be a 20-goal scorer in MLS. I think he's proven that, honestly. And that might be a bold statement.
That's a bold statement.
I honestly think it all comes down to the effectiveness of Carlos Hill and how healthy he is and how good he is going into his, the last years of his prime. But New England has brought in some good players, and I think that the East, in terms of which I'm assuming we're going to go here a little bit later in this episode, with all the turmoil that's happened in the East and all the great players that are either unsettled or not reporting for preseason or have been sold in the Eastern Conference. Look, I think New England, I don't think they're going to break into the top 4 or 5 teams, but I think they will be very firmly in the playoff conversation.
I think of all your arguments up to this point, this one is your weakest. But
That's why I didn't
that's
say
okay.
them first. But that's why I didn't say them first.
Okay.
Question was who should be excited? That was the question initially.
That was the question.
If
That
the
was the
dinosaurs
question.
can think back to that, I know your guys are
Whose fan base would be most excited?
I think New England's fan base should be excited because guess what? They're trying something different. They've literally turned over more than half their roster. So they're trying something different. And by the way, they spent a boatload of money on Campana, and honestly, from the things that I hear, he's gonna be worth it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if I would necessarily agree with that from a fan base standpoint. I think that they're going to be they are disenfranchised and they're probably a bit jaded on more of a you guys need to prove it to us as opposed to super excited. But I could be wrong. We should get a couple fans on this pod.
We all could be wrong.
Gordo, what do you in terms of like the biggest news of the offseason, was there anything that stuck out to you? Whether that's a hire or a player ad, somebody that came into the league, somebody that left. What stands out?
I'm so predictable. It's so stupid. Jovelic, they let Jovelic go. I think that.
Why is that a big deal for you? Just because of the season that he had? Because I don't. If I remember correctly, you weren't very high on him early, right? On Jovelic, like in being the guy in LA, or am I misremembering that?
No, I just said, the way they constructed it worked out. Okay, he just needed to be a pure finisher, and he's fantastic. I was concerned because I thought that they needed somebody up top based on their previous years that could make a goal out of nothing and be like a Acosta, right? Acosta or some of these guys that have to be Superman for the Galaxy to score because it looked like that for so long. Yeah. I wasn't sure he was that guy. You guys were on it. I'll be honest. You guys were like, all he needs to do is finish goals, which he did. And so I just I don't know. I don't know what the Galaxy are doing. There's a lot of moves being made, and seemed like they had it. Yeah. They had it figured out. So I just thought it was surprising. The money thing probably makes sense. They're clearing some space. They're probably getting some big dollars for him. Whatever, that may all make sense. I'm just saying I was surprised because you win. You're the he was the man. Mm-hmm. He was almost the MVP in the final.
I don't think. Well, I don't. Just to finish up on Jovelic, I mean, I don't think they could have made him a DP. I think he wanted to be a DP, and they can't make him a DP.
So it just came to dollars. Like you think?
Yeah, I think so because you have Peck, you have Paintsel, you have Puig. I mean, you're not keeping him over any one of those three. And if he wants a DP deal, you can't give it to him because you don't have the space. So
yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense, if you break it down.
So you think that they're just doing right by the player and moving him into a market that he can be a DP? That's fine. Dax, why don't you add a little color on the new mechanism that allowed him to move to Kansas City, because that's a big deal. Interleague transfers for actual cash. That's something that we've been asking for a long time as fans of the league.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we've been trying to see if there was like another way for teams to trade assets, because let's be honest, there have been very few like really, really compelling trades between teams with very important players in the last couple of years. It just doesn't happen because GAM, general allocation money, is worth its weight in gold. That's the most precious asset that you can have as a GM to build a roster. Mm-hmm. And if you have to trade, if you want to go and get a Leo Campana, and it's going to cost you, half of your GAM budget to just sign one player who could be a great player, but like, you guys know how it is. If you sign 2 or 3 great players and then you can't fill out the rest of your roster with good balance, you're going to be lopsided and it's not going to work. I mean, we've just seen that happen so much. And so if you have owners now who are very wealthy and they can throw their money around and they can spend the money on a proven entity, right? Do you go and spend $5 million on a Jovelic, who if you provide him with the right service and the right surroundings, he's going to score 20 goals for you in MLS, but he's a proven commodity? Or do you go spend $10 million or $6-7 million on a guy who was playing in a league in Europe and has a good track record in history, but he has no idea how MLS works. You don't know if it's going to translate to this league. Like, I think that the owner 10 times out of 10 would take the proven commodity who's still at a good age and who you can spend money on and not have to like completely hamstring yourself by giving up all your GAM. So I think it's a very valuable tool. I think we've seen already it's being used in MLS with Jovelic. And these are important trades. Like Jovelic leaving the Galaxy, that's an important thing because the Galaxy, if you didn't have this mechanism, they would have had to sell Jovelic to a Mexican team. And then you lose a great player. And, the fans of the league, they get stripped of the ability to watch a great goal scorer. But now you get to keep him in MLS and he gets happy. He gets what he wants too. He gets to become a designated player, which he earned. And the other one was Jack McGlynn, a player who, in my opinion, Philly should have never moved on from. But it was quite clear that Philly is going full Red Bull. And I've heard this from people that I trust. They fundamentally, they don't really want soccer players anymore. And
Dude,
look, I don't want to be doing
I think Philly's going full, let's compete in USL.
I don't want to finish with
a negative point total this year.
Right. I don't
100%.
want to do a disservice to the players they have there because they're all good players. But when you trade a player like Jack McGlynn, who is young, he's a homegrown, he's breaking into the U.S. men's national team, just scored a banger. He's, I think, widely regarded as one of the most technical and most talented young players in this league. But he's not an athlete. He's not. He's not.
No, he's not. He doesn't really fit the mold of their play.
He's not a Red Bull pressing machine. But look, when you're trading a guy like that, that signals a very strong intent that you're going full Red Bull system and you don't want a soccer player. And Houston probably wouldn't have been able to afford to go and get a Jack McGlynn with the amount of GAM it would have taken to get him. So they can buy him with cash. And that's great because then he goes to a Houston team who's going to be able to use him in ways that his skill set is going to make them significantly better. He's a pretty similar like-for-like replacement with Herrera. Now, I'm not saying he's on his level. When Herrera was at his best, he was an MLS Best 11 player. I think McGlynn can get there, but at the end of the day, you see this new mechanism, and it is being used in ways that I think we wouldn't have seen these moves in the past if it wasn't for this new system.
I think another surprising one that I forgot about was Chucho. And Chucho and Christian Ramirez leaving Columbus as well. There's two of their strikers that are going. Luckily for the Galaxy, we're picking up a great player, Christian Ramirez. We'll see what happens there. But Chucho leaving, is that because I heard rumors that was because he didn't think he would be available, or the coach told him he wouldn't be available for the Colombian national team if he was playing in the MLS? Did you guys hear that as well?
I think there's some validity to that.
That's what it is.
I don't know what player you're talking about.
But
I don't know who Chucho is. I know who Cucho is, but I don't know.
I like
is
Chucho.
That his twin brother?
I like Chucho. Anyway, add that to my blooper reel.
Hey, listen, you made your point. It was a great point.
I just thought
that's the Denver pronunciation. It's a soft C.
Yeah.
I was surprised by that, just because he's so fun to watch, and Columbus was so fun to watch when he was up there. And we're losing a real special talent in the MLS, and it's guys like that make the MLS
guys like that made Columbus relevant, right?
Well,
Dax?
and they made
yes.
And
you just made my point, yes, but guess what? They made money. They're going to go get another great player.
And it makes the MLS really enjoyable to watch when you have guys like that playing in our league, which is really sad for guys like this to go. But good thing is we've been able to replace guys like this and find them in clubs, so there'll be somebody new.
Yeah, and Columbus is an organization that you can trust. You can trust them to go out and use the money that they just made to find another player.
I think so. Just to add some context there, Gordo, because you're right. It sucks to lose a player like that. But this, for me, is a good thing for MLS because I read an article that Issa Tall did recently and he's their GM. He came out and he said, look, of course we don't want to sell Cucho. He's, if not the best player in MLS, one of the best players in MLS. But guess what? Yep. We told him when we bought him, the way we got him to come to MLS was we said, come here, be the star of our team, win trophies, build your career back up. And guess what? You're talented enough that when the right offer comes in, we're going to sell you back to Europe.
Yeah.
That for me is what every single team in MLS should be doing. They should be going and finding players like that who are underutilized at bigger clubs. They should be bringing them in, building the team around them, and then saying, "Hey, if you're at the right age and you get another offer to go back to Europe, we'll sell you." So I think Columbus did right by the player,
Yeah.
and that's why players want to come to MLS. Emmanuel Latte-Lot is 26 years old, and a lot of people were thinking he's a Premier League striker. Listen, he was doing great at Middlesbrough, and if he comes to Atlanta and crushes it, and Atlanta gets the right offer, then they would sell him, right? That's
I think
where
you're spot on.
That's where I think MLS has evolved a little bit, and that's where I think teams like Columbus are kind of being pioneers in that sense of like, hey, go get a player who's great, who's underutilized, make him a star, sell him back. That should be the model.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they are also bringing players back in. I mean, you saw Vasquez comes back into the league for
Austin.
yeah. I mean, that's another big jump for this league. They are spending, which is exciting to see. Anybody that you'd be significantly concerned about? I mentioned my concern, and I think Philly going full Red Bull is definitely an identity for them, and they've been trying to head in that direction for a while. Now they're committing to it. I'm a little concerned though at just the lack, and I think you said it well, Dax, in no disrespect to the players that are there, but it has been an issue for them about the lack of ambition to go out and find players and bring them into their environment. And I still see that as kind of a recurring theme here, especially for this season with a new coach. I can't imagine Carnell is going to be, thrilled to take on another opportunity, or maybe he is, building up with academy kids and not really that was the rub. That's been the rub. That was the rub for Curtin at the end of his time was, hey, we need to go and, bolster this roster. Is there anybody else that sticks out in your mind, Dax, in particular?
Yeah, I'm concerned with Philly for sure. Listen, I think that the Red Bull system, this full pressing, Gegen pressing system, it gives you a relatively high floor and to me, a really low ceiling, because you're just asking your players to just run into the ground, and it's really difficult to play against. But when you need a little bit of quality, sometimes it's just not there, because the players that you're asking to run into the ground, they're not typically the players of the highest quality. And like we've seen that for years now, right? And I thought Jim Curtin in Philly did a great job of balancing that, being able to press at times, but also having players that are game changers. Listen, I think Gazdag is still a game changer, but I just don't see many game changers on their roster. So I'm concerned about Philly. Listen, I'm really concerned about a few teams in the West. I'm scratching my head at a few teams in the West. I'm concerned about Dallas. I think Salt Lake's going to be fine. But I'm concerned about Dallas because I think you're losing. They lost a ton of talent, right? And they lost Jesus Ferreira, Paul Arriola, and Alan Velasco. So like three unbelievably important players for them. They have a new coach in Eric Quill, who he's coming from USL, which, no disrespect at all, I don't know enough about Eric Quill to speak about it honestly, but like he could be a great coach. It's just I don't know like how that will translate into MLS, right? It's a higher level for some of these players that are young. It's a higher level for him. But the team that I'm really concerned about is the Portland Timbers. Like, I think Portland, they made the playoffs last year. They got walloped at home, smacked at home. They have not. They brought in Kevin Kelsey from Cincy, and they signed him to a permanent deal. But he barely played for Cincy. So listen.
Did Evander leave?
The Evander situation is all over the place.
Yep.
He's clearly not happy, and we had Ned on. We had Ned on last year, and Ned was really transparent with us about that situation. I think Ned is probably just as frustrated as the entire fan base and everybody else, saying, where is the resolution with this guy? There's 2 weeks until the season starts, and you don't have a resolution with your best player.
Guess who was right? And this guy. Me and Darts.
You were. Fair enough. Well, whatever. I'm just saying, you don't have a resolution with this guy 2 weeks before the season starts. You're hamstringing yourself because Because
Yeah.
you don't, to me, Evander was essentially everything good about that team. Yes, I know Rodriguez and Mora, I know they scored goals for sure, but they scored goals because of Evander. So
it doesn't mean that you were wrong, Dax. It just means that, yes, you got to try to save him because he was a good asset. However, if you can't come to terms, he's going to drag you. He's going to drag us into the season, and you guys aren't going to be able to make any moves because
I agree. It's a huge problem. That's what I'm saying. Portland is on mass. Like, I'm talking not just like a regression. I'm talking like last in the West type stuff here, right? Like
that's a big fall from grace. But
it is,
right.
but especially for a club who's so their history is fantastic. Like they were hanging on by a thread last year, and that's with Evander. Now, I don't know. I'm really concerned about Portland.
Yeah, you're also going to have you're really going to struggle to move past that taste in their mouths that is still there of getting spanked at home in the playoffs. Yeah. That's not good, and the Evander situation is dragging on those bad vibes. Gordo, you mentioned Salt Lake.
They always make me nervous. They always make me nervous. I was actually more nervous last year because they fired Pablo's whole entire staff, which, even talking to Pablo, listen, you know, Pablo always has a great perspective, friend of the pod. He's always got a great perspective, and he takes every challenge that he has. He lost some great friends and coaches in that. It wasn't his decision, but I think that he's found some definite growth in himself with the pieces that they put around him. But I didn't see their roster as being amazing. And I don't want to butcher this guy's name. Who's the guy that just went to Chicho? Is he Chicho?
That's Chicho. You were combining Chicho and Cucho. I get it now.
It's not Chicho. Okay, Chicho. Well, they got rid of him. Well, don't forget, he carried them halfway through their season, and they need a goal scorer. Pablo's always going to get them to, be competitive and give everything they got. But I haven't seen them bring anybody in. You see their acquisitions, and it's a lot of like academy kids. It's a lot of like young guys that are coming up, and so they need somebody to score goals with the way that they construct their roster and how much that's not the right word, but they don't have the budget to buy some of these players and build these teams that some of the other teams do. So, but they need somebody special to score goals. So they make me a little bit nervous, but they do every freaking, because I don't think they give Pablo a lot of help down there with the budget.
Listen. As far as I'm concerned, this prediction bodes very well for Salt Lake.
I won the prediction challenge last year. What do you mean?
I know. I'm saying you're doubting them. That's great. Every time you doubt them, they're good. So I think
that's true.
All right, we're not going through predictions today. We're going to do that.
Or do you have anyone? Pod. Do you have anyone you're worried about? Philly? Or is anyone else?
I think Philly is the outlier for me. That seems the most obvious. I'm also a little bit concerned about the hometown that I live in right now in St. Louis City, in bringing in a new coach and just with how that dynamic all kind of comes to fruition. They're seemingly adjusting their style of play. When you do that within a roster that's already constructed, it can be somewhat challenging. You got new ideas coming in from a new head coach. I don't know. I don't. Yeah. That one will remain to be seen. A lot of uncertainty, as they say. So I would like for you guys to. I'm sending you packing with a little bit of a homework assignment. I want to go through some real predictions. Gordo, you knocked it out of the park last year. I'm going to give you another opportunity to do that again this year. Let's go through these on the next episode, top to bottom, Eastern and Western Conference, and let's we'll see. We got to put a bet on the end of that thing. But for now, we're going to wrap it up. This is a pretty little bow. Well done, Dax. I'm going to award you 1 point for the episode. Gordo, you're net neutral. And
just because you get cut every time, you can't start your own thing.
I'm already cutting. I'm cutting me out of this episode.
Hey, listen, the biggest fan of this pod, Chucho, he gives Gordo 10 points.
10 points.
Because he doesn't exist.
Oh, gentlemen. It's been lovely reconnecting. I will see you on the next one.
Take a nap.
Journeymen, we're out.